self. So let's get onto the topic because that's what we're talking about tonight. How do we be who we really are, which is the perfection of our soul? The perfection of our soul. You know, our soul is that part of us that's eternal. It's the part of us that existed before it came to be planted in the little body in the womb of your mother, before it began, as one cell and two and then four and then eight, and eventually a beating heart and your limbs and your eyes and your ears and your precious body formed. Your soul existed before that time, and your soul had designs. Your soul designed and created this incarnation for you. And it was you. You were the creator of all that's been going on in your life. But we all have this experience of falling asleep. Most of us, when we're young, we get conditioned how to think, how to believe, how to be, what to say, what to do, what's right, what's wrong, and all of that. And somehow, many times in the mix, we lose touch with who we really are, who our soul is. You see, when you say to me, I never had the love of a mother, or this happened to me with my father. I know we're heading into Father's Day, so be guarding your heart this week. Remember, you're more than just your story with your father, and you're more than just your story with your mother. You see, before you came into this body of yours and into this experience that you call your life, you've been a wise mother. You've been a loving father. You've likely fathered and mothered many, many, many children in many lifetimes. You've been many different things. And so it is you. You are the loving parent. Your soul, your eternal soul is the perfect parent for all of the parts of you. For all of the parts of you. This perfect parent knows the right choices, the right decisions to make, knows whether or not to buy that piece of property or sell it, knows whether or not to take that job, knows whether or not to have another child, knows whether or not to move your funds out of that bank or go off grid or move into the heart of the city. See, your soul knows all of these things. Now, sometimes you're going to hear Judah give you messages, like there's a message that's come out. I hope all of you've heard it. There's a couple of them about a real shaking that's going to happen, particularly in America over the next 18 months. What I don't want you to hear out of that is that Judah is saying that it's all gloom and doom. That's not what Judah's saying. Judah's saying, I trust you enough, Judah family, to tell you the truth of the trajectory that America is on right now, because I trust you to shift it with your high consciousness, with your love for this nation and all of its people, and through your willingness to be of high consciousness and to separate yourself from division and rancor and duality and right and wrong and left and right and all of that. See, that's what I want you to take away from those messages. I don't want you to go into fear. I want you to use the powerful soul that you are to shift and help create a new consciousness and a new reality for America and for the world, right? But for our concern, for some of us, our concern, and begin to see ourselves as global citizens. Okay, so human limitations, we all have them. We're talking about the perfection of the soul. How do we balance that or understand that in the light of our human limitations? See, this is the paradox, but it's the truth. Our soul is perfect, and we have human limitations. And our human limitations, they're not moral failures. From my perspective, they are not a sin nature. We're not inherently bad. And our limitations are not an indictment or a judgment of who we are or the choices we've made, what we've done or haven't done. Human limitations are what we all have in common, you see. And we also have in common this perfect soul that is in there. For some, the soul has expanded and filled up all the cells of our body. The divine light of our soul has filled up and expanded into all the cells of our body. For some, the divinity of our soul, its white light energy, has not only filled up the cells of our body, but is expanded out into what we call our auric field. And for some, our auric field is able to touch hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, even millions of people with the divine white light energy that we emanate. And all of this happens in conjunction with and can happen in harmony with our humanness and our limitations. So at the level, here's Judah, at the level of every soul is absolutely perfect, you see. And every soul is completely and permanently and irrevocably connected to source energy. There is nothing that you can do to disconnect yourself from your source. Nothing at all. You are absolutely forever connected. So when you feel disconnected, when you feel abandoned, unloved by source, you project it onto others, such as your father, your mother, your mate, your ex-lover, and so on. When you feel this sort of abandonment and disconnection, it is a feeling we're not we can validate your feeling, but we cannot validate the belief you have that you are disconnected, because it is a lie. It is most certainly untrue. This vessel recently watched a story of a woman who died in the hospital, and as her spirit, her soul, came up from her body and she looked down upon her body on the hospital bed, and as she arose and arose into the ether, she saw a web of white light, and there were nodes, points of intersection of this web, and each point of intersection was another soul in the hospital. You see, she could see the soul, the etheric light body, the eternal part of every person in that hospital, patient, doctor, nurse, custodian, and so on. She saw each point of light of each soul, and every one of them were interconnected, connected by etheric threads, forming a beautiful living weaving like a spider web, or the threads of a blanket. You see, she saw this light grid of souls. Many times you hear people in this segment of spiritual culture talking about a grid of light. What makes this grid of light is every soul. You, my dear, are one of the points on this grid of light, and you are connected with every other soul. So you see, we like to use these phrases such as "we are all one," but be careful that you don't use them in a trite or unaware way that you forget what they mean. There is a literal, visceral connection you have to every soul that makes up this beautiful web called life, and it is the very fabric of source, and source energy runs continually up and down these threads, these beautiful cosmic threads that connect you with light and love. So your soul is never disconnected. You're never alone. Some of you are somewhere tonight. You are in a small home, maybe in your car. Maybe you have gone outside to sit in your car because your mate or your family and the people that you live with don't approve of this sort of nonsense of Judah and others and so on. And you feel alone, but we will tell you it's a lie. It is a lie. The feeling is untrue. You are absolutely, most certainly connected. There is visceral proof of this when this vessel is on a call with some of you and you are across the world from her and she is in her home in North Carolina and you are in your home in West Africa, but you feel the powerful visceral energy in the room all around you. And you see, Judah, we and other angelic sources like ourselves of high consciousness can be in many places at once. We are not limited by time or space. This is characteristic of higher dimensional beings. We can be many places at once. And so if you're listening right now, and if you so wish, right now in this very second, we can be in the room with you and you will feel the manifestation of our power as a heat running through your body. You will begin to feel like a lightning rod, as if someone has plugged you into the wall and you're running a 220 voltage through your body. And you may begin to feel lighter than air and even a little high as we remove lower, thus dense energies in this time together. So your soul is always connected. Thank you, Judah. You know, this is the truth. In the truth, we are always loved, accepted, and connected. How do you know when you're hearing from angels? How do you know when you're hearing from your higher self or when you've tapped into the Akashic records? What's the evidence of that? The evidence is that you feel a complete and total acceptance of yourself and the atmosphere of the higher self and of angels and of source and of the lords of the Akashic records is you feel completely comforted and accepting of all that you are and all that you aren't. That is how you know that you're in the presence and the company of angels. You see, when we don't feel connected, loved, or accepted, these feelings cause us pain. Why do they cause us pain? Because they're lies. Because they're lies. So whenever you're feeling emotional pain, remember what I'm saying to you, that the reason you're feeling pain is because you're believing a lie. And when you can find the lie and disconnect from it and allow yourself to know the truth, then the pain will stop. The emotional pain will end. You see, fears are always based on a lie. When you deal with a lie, the fear will die. And so to be healed is to be, and healed, I'm going to put in quotation marks here. The word healed is really a misnomer. The truth is about your soul is that your soul is always whole. It's unblemished, untarnished. There's nothing you can add to it. There's nothing you need to take away from it. It's the part of you that is God in the earth, your soul. And so to be healed is to become aware of the fact that your soul is perfect and that you're intimately connected with source and nothing can undo that. And some of you right now, I experience this a lot on the calls with you guys. Yes, some of you, you believed a lie that you did a certain thing. You did the big one. You know the big one? You accidentally killed someone in a car accident, perhaps. Or you lost a child to suicide and you feel certain that if you had just done this thing, it wouldn't have happened. Or you cheated on your spouse. Or you had an abortion or whatever. There's the big one is for you. And you're convinced that this big one has separated you in some way from God and there's no way back. And we want to tell you it's stuff and nonsense, stuff and nonsense. It's an absolute untruth. So know tonight that you are completely forgiven, that each and every one of you did the very best you could with the light and understanding that you had. And that is the truth. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so pain comes when we buy into what our circumstances are trying to say about us, what other people say about us, what our ego mind is suggesting to us. I am encountering a pretty big accusation right now. You know what? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, doesn't matter. It's based on a lie. I don't give it my attention, and we're just going to let it die. So your soul is magnificent and is completely integris. See, if you are the one that Judah was just talking about, let's say who cheated on your spouse, and you just can't forgive yourself for the lack of integrity, because it's not really who you intended or set out to be. But what happened, you see. But from the level of soul, what the 4D would say, the 4D self is creating pain, tragedy, darkness, negativity, unfortunate events, unpleasant things you feel guilty about, things you can't forgive yourself for. But listen, this is what your soul says about those big ones and little ones. Every one of them is an integral part of the grand symphony of your life. I want you to imagine for a minute that you're listening to a song, and the song is only high notes. Only high notes. There's no mid notes. There's no low notes. Imagine. That wouldn't be very interesting, would it? Or what if you had a symphony where you only had the high flute, but not the tuba or the timpani drum, or only the high strings, but not the cello? Boring, right? And so your soul understands that even those big ones, or the really dark spaces or places in your life or experiences that you've had, they are what make your life into the grand symphony that it is meant to be. You see, there's major keys and minor keys in music. Major are the happy sounding and minor are the sad. But when you blend the two together, when you have majors and minors in the same song, in the same overture, all of a sudden it's so much more than it would be with only the happy. So the minor key, the difficult things, the painful things, those are the things that give our life mystery and beauty, depth and feeling. So I've been through some things in my life. You know, you guys hear Judah say all the time, you are creating your own reality. You're creating your own reality. This is a difficult truth to bear sometimes if you've experienced a lot of pain or trauma, or if you are currently experiencing pain and trauma. But you see, your soul knows that even the painful things, you created them for a purpose. And they make your life all the more beautiful. So the soul realizes and accepts that the symphony would not be complete or nearly as magnificent without the darker refrains. Back to that yin and yang symbol. If you haven't looked at the yin and yang for a while, maybe put one up. You okay? Maybe draw one or print one out. Just look at it. You know, in every bit of darkness, there's a little light. In every bit of light, there's a little darkness. But it takes the whole of the dark and the light together to make up the symphony of our life, our experience. So here's the key. You ready? The soul welcomes all things. The soul welcomes all things. When you come into a place where you welcome everything that's happened to you, everything that's happening to you, the good, the bad, the ugly, if you can welcome it all, then you come into freedom and the perfection of your soul. And that is what it means to live as a fifth dimensional being. And the perfection of your soul is that you're welcome all things. There's resistance to nothing. Nothing causes you fear. You can trust and accept that everything happening in your 3D material life and all the thoughts and emotions that you experience are for a greater good. So the soul knows that illness, broken hearts, hurts, all of these are portals for the soul to expand and begin to transmute energy, dark energy, into the positive, polarized, more divine white light energy that we want more of. And so from the level of the soul, your soul understands this. Your human limitations cannot and will not ever corrupt or destroy the perfection of your soul, because you are made in the image of God. And from the level of soul, this is what you know. You know that every action you've ever taken in this life, even those that hurt you or hurt other people, was your very best attempt in that moment to connect to more love. Can you see that? Can you see how even the dark, almost unspeakable things that some people do, they do those things because in that moment, in that space of their journey, it's the best attempt they know how to make to connect with more love. And the third thing that your soul knows is this is true about everybody else, not just about you, but about everybody. Everybody in this moment is doing their very best to try to connect to more love. So to be in the perfection of your soul is to recognize and know and experience yourself as unconditional love. You are love. You are the very love of God manifested on the earth. You are only love. And by this, you know, dear, that you have begun to encounter for yourself the first realm of enlightenment as a human soul. When you step over into an everyday experience that you love all people at all times, no matter what they say, do, think, no matter what accusation they bring, no matter how they might harm you, you love them still. You love them still. We're not saying you necessarily stay in a relationship with them, but in the realm of the soul, you love them. You love them. You love them. There's nothing they can do to turn you against them. There's nothing they can do to disconnect you from loving them. And you understand when they hurt, when they lash out, when they accuse, when they abandon, when they steal, when they harm, whatever it is they're doing, it is in their own fear that they live in a hell of their own making, in their own mind, and they are only simply making a desperate attempt to find and connect to more love. And because of who you are and the enlightenment in which you walk, you can accept this and love them anyway.